Hello and welcome to the next edition of the CXO Conversations. And I'm delighted to be joined by Parag, who is the CEO of Nucleus Software based in India. And, you've been on some journey. It's very rare that I've interviewed anyone that's been at the same company for 35 years. I think that you're going to get an award or a medal, but I think it's a lesson in today's world that you can be successful in one organization, and you are testament to that. You started off as we discussed earlier. You started off as a software engineer.
Yep.
You've worked your way up, and now you're the CEO. So what are some of the key things you've learned on this journey from over the 35 years, which by the way is fantastic?
Thanks, Pat, for getting me here. And yes, it has been a very interesting journey. And it's not only about me. If you look at Nucleus Software as an organization, you'll find many of us who have done 20 years, 25 years, 30 years.
What's the
30.
secret? What's the secret that
Uh,
that Nucleus Software has managed to retain people for that long?
I think a couple of things. One is the kind of work we do. So we specialize in a few things.
Hmm.
So people who like this work continue with it. It's not that people don't leave us, but we believe that if nucleites, as we call them, have stayed with us for, let's say, 5 6 years, then they'll continue, because then they just uh, get into the DNA of the organization. The second thing I think is more on the people front. I think Nucleus as an organization is very, very employee friendly. We on many occasions we talk about, and not us, but our customers also talk about us as a large family. So that's the kind of environment that is there. So when any one of us faces some difficult times on a personal front, I think there's tremendous support from the organization.
Wow.
So that's what I think keeps us going.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot of empathy in the company, and
Yeah,
I like the term nucleites. I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's quite a cute term, and maybe we can explain for those listening in. Nucleus Software has been on probably multiple journeys, pivots over the years, and maybe you could share a little bit of what you do. And you're in the lending space, but maybe
Okay.
you could share a little bit on the business itself, and
Sure.
what keeps it fresh as well. So maybe you could share that.
Sure. So I would start with the early years. Um, we while we are doing lending and transaction banking, specialize in these areas, but the place where we learned banking is when one of the multinationals set up their retail operations in India, that's Citibank, and we did a lot of custom work for them. But that's when we learned banking technology. And what happened next is, I think at that time, the markets in India were opening up. So there were a lot of finance companies who set up their shop in India. And one of their key needs was a
This
lending.
was in the 90s or
It
2000s?
was in late 80s, 90s,
Late
yes.
80s, 90s. Okay.
80s, 90s. And one of their key needs was a lending software, because that's one of the areas where banks make money. So we got into it, and thankfully it clicked for us. We our founder to be specific, co-founder and managing director, Mr. Vishnu, he was very clear that from India we will create IP, intellectual property, because at that time uh, the biggest of IT companies in India were either sending people to the Western world just as bodies that they were called at that time, or for doing custom development. But a founder had a vision that we will create intellectual property from India, because he said that, believe that India is a country of Buddha, where there's a lot of intellect that is there.
There is, yeah.
So that may be one of the areas also where what makes people stay, because people who understand this business, and it's kind of kick that we get out of it, because we are now into 50 countries, 200 customers, doing lending and transaction banking. So it is our, I think, fourth generation of lending products. We starting with a leasing product that moved, then got converted it into retail lending product. Then because the business changes, and faster than that the technology changes, so we had to make changes. So it's like I would say the fourth generation of the lending product.
Of the
And
software product, the
yes.
lending software. Well,
And
what has been the biggest change that you've seen? Maybe the most recent pivot you had. What was the biggest change that you've seen in the last few years?
I would say the ecosystem has changed completely, because a couple of decades back when we were doing lending software, uh, there were hardly any integrations. The fintech world was not known,
Yeah.
so we in fact ourselves call
So you didn't
us.
really have many APIs. Whereas
Yeah, they
now,
were not there.
yeah.
And that's why. And today's, sorry, just come to the APIs. Today's situation, our lending product interfaces with, I think, 40 odd fintechs, 40 fintechs. Earlier it was just about a credit bureau or something like that. Now the world has changed completely. So lot of integrated world. Uh, APIs, yes, the integration is through APIs. Our software has about 500 plus APIs. That is one reason why we had to completely re-architect our product. So earlier it was like um, old generation heavy product. We decided that instead of doing superficial changes, it was important to completely re-architect it. So we created an open architecture, API first approach, and that's how we are able to now integrate with so many fintechs and provide end-to-end digital lending to our customers. So you asked what's changed in past few years. It is digital lending. Earlier it was a lot of traditional lending, a lot of manual work. Most customers are now wanting to get into uh, end-to-end digital lending, which means less and less of human intervention. So we have the facility to create something known as STPs, straight through processing, using through which most of the standard loans can go through without any human interventions, because there is a set of rules that are defined. And in lending business, most 80%, I would say 80 to, depending on the line of business, 80 to 90% are like standard businesses, and only 10% are exceptions. So if you are able to pass through the 80 to 90% in a straight through manner without any human intervention, that is a big productivity boost to the banks and the finance companies.
You can service more customers as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. No, that's great. And you mentioned the 10% exceptions.
Yep.
Are they the real complex ones? How does your software navigate those, or are they that requires the human touch more?
Yeah, it could be. So if I talk about on the individual front, there may be some individuals whose documents may not be so appropriate, so that requires further investigation. Field agents need to go to their houses or to their businesses to check.
Okay.
That's an exception. Similarly, on the business front, small businesses typically, not all of them will have proper documentation, so that requires then
Yeah.
human intervention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, when we look at the lending space, it's gone through a lot of ups and downs, and so what are you seeing for this year in the lending space? Because you guys don't do the lending, you provide the software.
That's correct.
For your customers to be able to do this, but clearly it's predicated on the end customer, your customer's customer. And so what are you seeing in the lending space? What's new for this year?
So few things. Two, three things I would say. One, it is, as I said, the digitization journey, which is already happening and is likely to continue. The second, and specifically in Indian market, we are seeing a concept of co-lending emerging, which is
Co-lending.
co-lending, which means that
Okay.
two financial institutions, they come together and lend to an end customer.
Got you.
And typically there is a bank at the back and there's a finance company. So the finance companies typically have an advantage of the reach, because they are into rural areas and they have a reach and which the banks may not have. At the same time, the banks have the funds and the they have access to easy. I would say money at a
So they have
less
the
rate.
liquidity from
They have
the
liquidity. They
current
have the
accounts.
deposits.
Yeah, the
So
deposits. Yeah.
less cost of funds. So
Okay.
they come together and
Do they share the risk as well?
they share the risk as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we are hearing, and that's the, if I say, the single most demand that's coming from our customers is on
So
co-lending.
then you need to tweak your software to be
Yeah.
able to work with both the finance company
Yes. Yes.
and the bank itself. Okay. And what do you see then, just kind of as a segue in to what's going on in India? You look across the world at the moment, and we have changes coming from the US, certainly, and how the world is changing from that perspective, and then you have some challenges going on in Europe and China as such. But in India, what would you see as the outlook for this year? Maybe from an economic, but also from a fintech perspective, maybe a, a bank and financial services perspective.
Okay, so I see India. I think a growth market, and in some sense it resembles Africa, but maybe India a little bit ahead in terms of technology and processes, etc. Thankfully, I think we still see a lot of growth despite what's happening in other parts of the world. There's a lot of focus now on small businesses, the SMEs and MSMEs as we call them, small and medium businesses, and micro segment. So there is a micro segment that is emerging, and both the government and the regulators are encouraging and enabling the financial institutions to do more and more lending to these institutions. So that's one big thing coming up, which is what I'm hearing here as well. There is a lot of focus on providing credit to small businesses.
Yeah.
So some similarities. I think that's one big thing, because there's a very large untapped market of small businesses which who need credit. They may not have, they may not, till now, they may not have access to formal credit because the kind of documentation that is required, that is not there. But thanks to the digital payments that's happening, and there are billions of payments that happen in India in the digital space now, uh, there's a there's a parallel digital transaction trail that is getting created, and some of the lenders have started to use that to give credit to small businesses. So that's also a big change, which I expect can happen in other markets as well.
Got you. And which markets are you currently in? Obviously, your core market is India. Which other markets are you kind of looking at, and what does that look like? What does the future look like geographically for Nucleus?
Okay. So India is, of course, the home market, we would say, but it's not only that we operate in India alone. We've been operating in India, Middle East, Southeast Asia, to some extent in Africa. We also present in small numbers, in a small way in Europe and Latin America, and Japan as well. So pretty vast. I
Wow, so
mentioned
it's
earlier that
almost
50
global,
countries. Yeah,
apart from the US.
apart from the US, you president, and that is one market which we are trying to now develop. So there's
For
a
the
lot of,
US, yeah.
there's a lot of background work which is happening to get into North America,
Okay.
and we hope to get there in some time. But other than that, we already present in terms of developed markets. We are already present in Japan and Australia for a few years. Japan for 2 decades now, more than 2 decades, 2.5 decades now, and Australia for about a decade. So that those are expected to be growth markets, and in some time US should also happen.
Okay. Wow. World domination.
Well, in lending space specifically, yeah, we've been rated as the highest selling retail lending product for 10 years in a row.
Yeah.
That's by a agency known as IBS Publishing, UK based agency.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
IBS. Yeah, they do their
So
intelligence
so
reports.
so yeah, because we specialize in this area. Our focus area is this lending
Yeah.
and transaction banking, and that's what we do.
Got you. Okay. No, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation, and yeah, one of the things I always start my interviews off, and I'm going to leave it right to the end, is what you wanted to be as a child, and you said to me you wanted to work for government in defence, and so yeah, it's interesting. when I ask these types of questions, I think this is quite a unique one. Very few people say, yes, this is what I wanted to be based on an exam you had. But
Yeah, actually, in those time, like I am now 35 years into the business, but at that time, the choices were, I would say, were also limited. So typically, either you'd get into defense or you would do engineering or do medical.
yeah,
Essentially, those were the choices.
three pathways.
Yeah, the defense
But now
happened
you're
to
the
be the
CEO
first.
of a business.
It just I'm thankful to my organization
Yeah.
and the customers, and this is like uh, we always believed in homegrown leaders because it's easy to adopt to the culture, so that's what we believe in. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much. It's
And
been lovely talking to you. And
yeah.
thank you for inviting me here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.